What is going on, YouTube? So coming back today with another NBA draft scouting report. So today I'll be doing Tyler Ulis, and yesterday I did Ben Simmons. Day before did Brandon Ingram. So changing gears a little bit, going to my first point guard in the draft, and anyway, moving to some of his background information. 5'9", 165 pounds, sophomore out of Kentucky, 6'1" wingspan, and he is from Lima, Ohio. Last year averaged 17.3 points per game, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists. So put up solid stats. John Calipari thought he should have been a candidate for Player of the Year. Said he should have won Player of the Year, not a candidate. So get into some of his strengths. So first one is he's a very good facilitator. He's very quick off the dribble, and if you leave him open, he's a high-energy guy who can create a lot of scoring. So you leave him open, then you're leaving points on the court. And again, he's a guy that's extremely quick, can find the open man, even though he is on the short side of things. So second strength is he's got a quick first step. He's good on the drive. So this is one of his biggest strengths. He's extremely quick at getting into the paint, very slippery, can change speeds very well, and obviously very rarely misses a layup. So third strength is he's incredibly quick in transition. So this kind of goes off how quick he is with driving. He changes speeds extremely well, can break pressure and double teams like it's nothing. If you watched him play at all this year, it's incredibly hard to get turnovers off of him when he's on his game. And I think he was one of the most improved players from his freshman to his sophomore year. When you're just talking about being a complete player, he went up from playing about 23 to 24 minutes per game to playing 37. So yeah, obviously a big change in minutes. He was pretty much Kentucky's heart and soul this past year. Jamal Murray got a lot better as the year went along. Skal Labissiere had his moments. Marcus Lee played all right, but overall it was Tyler Ulis. So fourth strength is he's got quick hands and he's a great dribbler. So again, another great part of his game is, like I said, high energy. When you are that short, you need to be a good dribbler. It's just one of the things you got to compensate with. And this plays into his defense a little bit, but when he's on, you will very rarely draw turnovers off of him. So last strength, and I think one of his more underrated strengths, is he plays very tough D and he draws turnovers. He's a pest. He draws a lot of charges. He knows how to play tough, close D, and rarely are you going to be able to run a good backcourt, run a good two-man game with Tyler Ulis playing lockdown D, unless you got a shooting guard or a point guard that is significantly taller than him. And even so, like I said, he's a pest, man. He draws a lot of turnovers. He averaged 1.5 steals per game this past year, and definitely is, I'd say, one of the better defensive point guards in this draft. So get into some of his weaknesses. First one is the most obvious one. That's his size. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Ulis over the last, I'd say, few months. More recently, I think he's seen a big rise in his draft stock of late. But again, he's a 5'9" point guard. Like, when you're under 6 foot in the NBA, you better have elite skills everywhere else. And you say, well, if he was 6 foot to 6'2", maybe 6'3", he'd probably be a top 5 pick, maybe top 8, maybe top 10, at least a lottery pick for sure. And yeah, that's true, but it's a what if. It's not going to happen. I think pretty much all other areas that you need a point guard to be solid are there for Ulis, but again, the size hurts. So next weakness is he's not a great shooter. His three-point shooting actually regressed from about 42% to 34% from his freshman to his sophomore year, while his overall field goal percentage got better. Went from 41 to 43%, not a huge jump, but still. And he's a very good free throw shooter. He shot about 86% from the line, but was inconsistent from deep. And again, when you're that size, having a good stroke from long range helps. And while it's not a terrible shooting percentage, that probably translates to about a 30% shooter in the NBA if he's not able to improve. It's just the inconsistencies that kind of brings up a red flag. So the last weakness is he is very turnover prone at times. So average about 2 turnovers per game, which isn't awful, but again, the inconsistencies kind of come up here. Now, when I say inconsistencies, a lot of them might just be drawn from the fact that Kentucky just was kind of a shit show at times this year. None of their players were really consistent as the year went along. He didn't have a consistent base around him. He was the heart and soul of their team. Like, there's no doubt about that. By the end of the year, it was they had a very solid backcourt form between him and Jamal Murray, but especially at the beginning of the year, they were relying so heavily on him. This is a guy that played over 1,200 minutes this year. So I don't know if it was fatigue, but, I mean, when you play that, he had the ball in his hands quite a bit. You have the ball in your hands that much, especially for that long. You're playing that heavy of minutes. Turnovers probably going to happen. But, again, when you are 5'9", I'm going to keep coming back to that. You got to be elite pretty much everywhere else if you want to be a first-round pick and a great point guard in the NBA. All right, so getting into some of his projections. This is going to be a quicker video just because I don't think there's too much to say about Tyler Ulis, just because he's pretty much good. He's good at almost everything that you want a point guard to be good at. It's just the size isn't there to sum everything up. I can see Tyler Ulis being a great point guard in the NBA. I mean, size is obviously a big thing, and I mean, when you're below 6 foot, it hurts. But I mean, there's been great point guards in the past that are below 6 foot. I mean, I know he's not as vertically challenged as, say, a Muggsy Bogues or Spud Webb, but I mean, those guys were still fantastic point guards in the NBA, had great careers. And, I mean, even you want to bring up AI. I mean, I think AI was, what, 5'11", 6'1"? I don't think he was that short, but, yeah, 6 foot. So, I mean, there's great point guards in the NBA that have not been the tallest guys in the world. But I personally see him being probably like a pick in the range of 18 to 30. I think he will go in the first round. He was that good this year, and he's that good everywhere else. I think teams will be able to overlook the fact of how short he is. Like I said, if you're talking about a guy that is 6 foot, 6'2", then you're talking about a lottery pick at the lowest. I mean, this guy would probably be a top 5 pick, honestly, if he was like 6'2". But again, it's just hard to tell just with a guy that's that short. Now, I'm going to pull up last mock draft to see where he went. I have not had him in the first round in any of my mock drafts, I don't think. But like I said, he's seen a pretty dramatic rise in his draft stock. And a lot of mock drafts have him going in the first round now. NBADraft.net's last mock draft has him going 36 to Milwaukee. I think he probably fits in as a rotation point guard. I wouldn't say exactly like a Ty Lawson type, but I kind of like that comparison. Maybe as a 6th or 7th guy in the rotation. And again, there's a lot of there's a lot of teams that could use a spark plug, a guy that brings that much energy. I think you're talking about maybe 8 points per game, 4 assists per game, sort of rookie year. And then see where it takes off after that. But I think he's gonna be a first round pick. I really do. I mean, honestly, there's been so many guys declaring for the draft this year that he might be pushed down to the second round. But even so, I don't think if he makes it out of the top 40, I'll be very surprised. If he makes it out of the top 30, I'll be surprised. But I don't think he makes it out of the top 40 in any scenario. All right, so that does it. Again, if you've not seen my past mock drafts, or excuse me, not mock drafts, scouting reports, I'll put the link to the entire playlist of the NBA draft scouting reports in the description below. Tomorrow will be, let's see here, Bryce Johnson. So getting into some of the bigger names in college basketball this past year from some of the bigger schools. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Here that I will be going through. And when I actually do my scouting report update video, I'll say who all I'm doing in that video. But I've already done Rab, Jaylen Brown, Buddy Hield, now Brandon Ingram, and then tomorrow will be Ben Simmons. So, give you a little bit of background information about Brandon Ingram himself. He is a